The story unfolds in Melbourne, Australia, in the tumultuous year of 2020. Katia Reguero, a vibrant 23-year-old woman, lived there with her devoted mother and younger brother. Katia also had an older half-brother. From her earliest days, she was celebrated for her kindness and effervescent spirit. Friends and family described her as a radiant beacon of love and joy. Her bond with her mother was profound, steeped in unconditional love. Katia's mother fondly remembers her daughter as a stunningly beautiful and kind soul, a combination that rendered her truly exceptional. However, this alluring combination of beauty and kindness drew the attention of a true monster. For 2.5 years, Katia thrived at a call center in Melbourne, earning respect and admiration from her colleagues. During her time there, she entered into a discreet relationship with a coworker named Christopher. The couple opted to keep their romance private, unaware of the lurking danger in their midst. That danger manifested in the form of Luis Secco, a 35-year-old man who worked at the same call center. Katia had no inkling that his gaze upon her sparked a dangerous obsession. Initially, Luis remained in the shadows, simply admiring her from afar. Despite working in the same environment, their encounters were infrequent, and any interaction they had was superficial, devoid of depth or significance. Luis had begun his employment at the call center in April of 2018, starting as a customer service operator. Months later, Katia ascended to the role of his manager. However, in June of 2019, Luis was dismissed from the company due to his inadequate performance. As his manager, Katia was tasked with escorting him out of the building. She approached the situation with grace and kindness, wishing him well and extending her hand in a gesture of respect. Yet, in a shocking turn of events, Louise lunged forward and pressed a kiss on her cheek. The unexpected invasion of her personal space left Katia feeling deeply uncomfortable. Stunned, she later confided in her boyfriend and family about the unsettling incident, grappling with the implications of his actions. The kiss seemed to ignite a spark within Louise, transforming his feelings into an all-consuming obsession. After he was let go, he returned home, consumed by thoughts of Katia, and turned to his computer. Determined to find her online, he began scouring her social media accounts, including Instagram. About a week after his dismissal, he mustered the audacity to send her a message. In his message, Luis professed his feelings for her. Katia, upon reading his words, responded politely, making it abundantly clear that she harbored no interest in pursuing a relationship. Rejecting his advances, she hoped that would be the end of it. Yet, Luis was undeterred. He unleashed a relentless barrage of messages until Katia felt compelled to block him on Instagram. This marked the beginning of a chilling cycle. Mere days later, Luis created another Instagram account and resumed his uninvited communication. Disturbed by his persistence, Katia chose silence, hoping he would simply fade away. Yet, the messages continued to flood in. Luis professed his love with a fervor that was both alarming and unsettling, declaring that he wanted to be with her more than anything. Eventually, Katia was driven to respond once more. She pleaded with him to cease all communication and leave her alone. Luis found himself blocked again, but the cycle only grew more vicious. Luis would create new accounts, only to be blocked again and again. The relentless pattern escalated to a point where Katia's mother intervened, sending him a message demanding that he stop contacting her daughter. But the accounts and messages kept coming, an unyielding tide of harassment. In December of 2019, Luis took his vile behavior to new depths, bombarding Katia with a multitude of explicit and derogatory messages. These messages outlined in graphic detail what he wished to do with her if given the chance. The shift in his tone sent icy chills down Katia's spine. Fear began to take hold, prompting her to report the escalating situation to her colleagues. Katia Reguero found courage through a friend who urged her to contact the authorities. Taking that advice to heart, she decided to act. One day, while at work, she glanced outside towards the parking lot. There, she spotted Liao, sitting in a car, watching her intently. Frightened and desperate, Katia and her family approached the police once more, yet their pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears. It's crucial to recognize that such obsessive behavior is a precursor to violence. These individuals are often teetering on the edge of lethal intent. Months turned into a year, and Liao's unsettling behavior continued unabated. On July 1, 2020, Katia and her mother returned to the police station, detailing the ongoing ordeal of stalking. With a heavy heart, Katia shared the chilling messages she had received. Finally, a police officer acknowledged the gravity of the situation and sprang into action. 2 days later, the court issued a personal safety intervention order, known as a PSIO, aimed at protecting Katya. The order was served to Liao, and, for a fleeting moment, communication ceased, offering Katya a glimmer of relief. She dared to hope that the nightmare was finally over, but the darkness was far from gone. On August 10, 2020, Liao was arrested and brought in for questioning. Under the spotlight of police scrutiny, he confessed to repeatedly reaching out to Katya through various Instagram accounts, yet he displayed an alarming arrogance, dismissing his actions as legal. When confronted about the emotional toll his messages inflicted on Katya and her family, he callously retorted that if she was distressed, she should have simply logged out of her account. Following the interrogation, Liao was released from custody pending further investigation. Meanwhile, Katya was left grappling with the emotional fallout of the ordeal. Anxiety consumed her, a gnawing fear that something dreadful might happen at any moment. In a chilling remark, the perpetrator suggested that if Katya found the messages distressing, she should have simply logged off and ignored them. After the intense questioning and subsequent arrest, Liao Seko was released from custody, pending further investigation. However, the turmoil surrounding the situation weighed heavily on Katya. The emotional strain was palpable as she became consumed by the fear that something truly horrific might befall her. Liao Seko was notorious for sitting in his car outside the call center, fixated on Katya. In response to his unsettling behavior, the call center implemented a safety plan. Staff members would now escort Katya to her vehicle at the end of each shift, ensuring her safety. Katya confided in several colleagues about her fears, expressing that she was terrified Liao might one day take her life. Her concerns were not unfounded. On August 11, 2020, she uploaded a photograph with her boyfriend, making it her profile picture. That same day, Liao went to a local supermarket and purchased a large kitchen knife, consumed by rage after seeing the image. Just days later, on August 15, 2020, Liao sent Katya a 3.5-page email. She chose not to open the message and promptly reported it to the police. In this email, Liao implored Katya to abandon her pursuit of a personal safety intervention order and to withdraw her complaints to law enforcement. He spun a twisted narrative, claiming to be the real victim in the unfolding drama. However, by reaching out to Katya, Liao had decisively breached the PSIO. Alarmed by his violation, Katya and her family returned to the police, detailing Liao's blatant disregard for the order. The authorities contacted Liao once more, a move that likely ignited an explosive anger within him. To Liao, he was the wronged party. Everyone else, including Katya and the police, were simply antagonists in his eyes. Throughout a year marked by stalking, Liao obsessively scoured the internet for Katya's home address. His efforts bore fruit when he uncovered an image of her house, allowing him to pinpoint her suburb. He likened this discovery to navigating Google Maps, a chilling testament to his premeditation. With this knowledge, Liao would often drive to Katya's residence, lurking in the shadows and observing her from a distance. Though the number of his visits remains unknown, it is presumed he did this frequently. On November 16, 2020, Liao's obsession reached a terrifying climax. Restless and unable to sleep, he wallowed in self-pity, convinced he was the true victim in this saga. At 3:22 a.m., he made a fateful decision. He rose from his bed, armed himself with a hammer and the kitchen knife he had purchased weeks earlier, and entered his car. Katya's plight had been escalating for months, a harrowing journey that stretched over a year. On July 1, 2020, she and her mother sought help from the police yet again, reporting the incessant stalking. Katya presented the police with the barrage of troubling messages she had received, which finally prompted action from an officer. 2 days later, the court granted a personal safety intervention order, or PSIO, against Liao. This order was served to him, and for a brief moment, it brought a sense of relief to Katya. She hoped that, at last, her nightmare was over. But hope would soon be dashed. On August 10, 2020, authorities arrested Liao and questioned him regarding his harassment of Katya. He admitted to contacting her through various Instagram accounts, yet he dismissively claimed there was nothing illegal about his actions. When police explained the significant distress his messages caused Katya and her family, Liao callously responded that if Katya was so troubled by the messages, she should simply stop reading them and log out of her account. Following this interrogation, he was released from custody, pending further investigation. Earlier that same night, Louise had been driving toward the home where Katia lived with her family. Aggie was the only other person at home, unaware of the terror that was about to unfold. Louise had been fixated on Katia, watching her from the shadows, but Aggie had no idea of the horrific intentions lurking within him. After circling the block, Louise parked a short distance from Katia's home, a mere 2-minute walk away. He exited his vehicle, his mind set on his dark purpose. Clutching a hammer and a knife, he approached the home, his footsteps heavy with intent. It seemed he had been stalking Katia, knowing exactly which room she occupied. Louise jumped over the side fence, slipping into the backyard before making his way to Katia's bedroom at the rear of the house. He stood just outside her window, while Katia slept peacefully, unaware that danger was only a breath away. With a grim determination, Louise swung the hammer, shattering the window. As he crawled through the jagged glass, it tore into his flesh, but the pain only fueled his resolve. Katia awoke to the horrifying sight of the man who had tormented her for months, invading her sanctuary. Terror must have flooded her mind as she realized the nightmare was real. Louise wasted no time. He lunged at Katia, knife in hand. In a frantic attempt to protect herself, she raised her arms, but it was futile. The attack was frenzied and brutal as he unleashed his rage upon her. He stabbed her repeatedly, knowing that time was running out. Aggie was still in the house, and the noise would soon draw her attention. In total, Louise plunged the knife into Katia over 23 times, inflicting grievous wounds across her body. Her chest, abdomen, back, legs, and arms bore the marks of his fury. Katia fought back, suffering defensive wounds on her forearms and hands as she tried to ward off her attacker. But in the end, Louise struck her directly in the heart. Just as quickly as he had come, he disappeared into the night, leaving behind a scene of horror. He dropped the knife on the floor, leaving it to rest among the shards of glass. Lloyd left through the broken window, cutting himself in the process, and discarded the hammer in the yard, where it would later be recovered by police. A blood trail marked his escape, leading back to his car, bearing witness to the violence he had just unleashed. In a horrifying rush, Louise fled the scene, having only spent a mere 2 minutes away from his vehicle. The entire attack was shockingly brief. After breaking into Katia's home, he stabbed her and returned to his car in a total of 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Meanwhile, Katia's mother, Aggie, was jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass. Alarmed, she rushed to investigate, opening the bedroom door just enough to peek inside. What she witnessed would haunt her forever. Her beloved daughter lay in a pool of blood, a sight no mother should ever have to endure. In utter disbelief, Aggie struggled to comprehend the nightmare before her. Desperate to save Katia, she attempted to lift her from the bed, but the weight of the situation was overwhelming. Broken glass littered the floor, a grim reminder of the violent intrusion that had just occurred. With urgency, Aggie performed CPR, but as panic set in, she bolted to her bedroom to call for help. The call connected at 3 o'clock in the morning. When the police and paramedics arrived, they found Katia on the floor, surrounded by a horrific scene of blood. While Aggie desperately shouted, "Please don't leave me." As she tried to revive her daughter, paramedics arrived too late. Katia's injuries were catastrophic, and she was pronounced dead mere moments later. As chaos unfolded, Liao Secco drove recklessly, his mind fixated on one destination, the police station. At 3:00 a.m. he arrived, erratically maneuvering his vehicle and colliding with a bollard, a harbinger of the turmoil that lay ahead. Outside the police station, before he could even cross the threshold, Lloyd was met by 2 officers. This encounter was no coincidence. It was a calculated move in his twisted plan. In a desperate attempt to appear insane, he made cryptic references to his heinous act. With chilling calmness, he uttered the words, "She's dead." "Go and have a look at the crime scene." His demeanor shifted as he pleaded with the officers, begging them to draw their guns and end his life. By this point, the police were acutely aware of the attack on Katia. During his conversation with the officers, Lloyd pointedly remarked, "You know what happened. It's all your fault." Taken into a separate room for questioning, the investigation began to unfold. Lloyd had a strategy to feign insanity and try to evade the consequences of his actions. That night, Lloyd confessed to the police that he had quickly entered and exited Katia's home, yet he downplayed his awareness of the brutality he had inflicted, claiming darkness had clouded his vision. In a disturbing display of evasion, he lamented how mistreatment from the police and Katia regarding his stalking had altered his character, a grotesque refusal to acknowledge his own culpability. He continued, claiming that he had sought out Katya not to harm her, but in the hope of silencing the pain and the relentless voices that tormented him. He further asserted that his mental health had deteriorated since the lockdowns in 2020, suggesting that the stress of his interactions with Katya had pushed him over the edge. Following the harrowing police interview, Lloyd faced charges for Katya's murder and was remanded into custody. As legal proceedings commenced, mental health professionals began their assessments. During these proceedings, forensic evaluations revealed that Lloyd had exaggerated his symptoms of mental illness, further complicating the already tragic narrative of Katya's untimely death. In the wake of Katya's murder, the chilling details of Lloyd's psyche and his calculated facade began to unravel, setting the stage for a trial that would expose the depths of his depravity. A psychiatrist would later conclude that Lloyd's theatrics were nothing more than a ploy to elicit sympathy. He was very much aware of the difference between right and wrong at the time he committed the crime. As the investigation unfolded, Lloyd stooped to new lows. He attempted to deflect responsibility by claiming that a voice he called Aisha had compelled him to kill. He insisted that these ominous whispers urged him to harm Katya, and he believed that committing the murder would silence them. As multiple evaluations took place, it became clear that Lloyd was merely putting on a show. His behavior was a grotesque performance. Nevertheless, court documents revealed that he suffered from an undiagnosed extreme personality disorder. Alongside his struggles with depression and body dysmorphia, experts determined that he was not in the throes of a psychotic episode during the crime. One psychiatrist even noted that the risk of him reoffending was alarmingly high. He chillingly stated that if ever released, he would likely stalk other women, a foreboding testament to his dangerous psyche. Soon after, his personality disorder was classified as extremely severe and atypical among those who commit such violent offenses. Initially, Lloyd pleaded not guilty to Katya's murder, a stance that plunged her family into despair. The trial commenced in January of 2024. Forensic psychiatrists took the stand, and one psychologist painted a haunting picture of Lloyd's troubled upbringing, revealing a childhood marked by trauma and instability, compounded by relentless bullying. Yet, despite these revelations, Lloyd stubbornly refused to accept responsibility for Katya's death. Instead, he deflected blame onto law enforcement and others, arguing that their actions had transformed him into a different person. Throughout his life, Lloyd had struggled to form intimate relationships, leaving him isolated and disconnected. This information was provided by the Liao family, highlighting the profound impact of his past. During his teenage years, Liao Seko became increasingly isolated, retreating into the confines of his bedroom. In the months leading up to the tragic killing, his reclusive behavior intensified, a stark warning sign that went unnoticed by those around him. In February of 2024, Liao Seko made a significant shift in his legal stance, changing his plea to guilty. The court responded with a sentence of 36 years in prison, imposing a non-parole period of 30 years. The judge, while recognizing Liao's mental health struggles, made it clear that he was fully aware of the gravity of his actions. The courtroom was heavy with the acknowledgement of the devastating impact this crime had on Katya Reguero's family and friends. Despite the severity of the crime, the court ultimately decided against a life sentence. They cited Liao's personality disorder as a mitigating factor, claiming it diminished his moral culpability. Throughout the trial, he exhibited no signs of remorse, a chilling testament to his mindset. Liao Seko seemed to harbor a twisted belief that Katya deserved her fate, positioning himself as the true victim of the narrative. As the sentencing unfolded, he remained silent, offering neither a personal statement nor an apology to Katya's grieving family. Aggie, Katya's mother, was left grappling with profound disappointment. She described the sentence as outrageous, feeling it was unfathomable that Liao was granted mercy when he had shown none to her daughter. With a heavy heart, Aggie expressed her belief that the justice system had failed Katya, allowing a dangerous individual to walk away with a lenient sentence. Her fears did not end there. Aggie worried that if Liao were ever released, he might inflict the same horror on another innocent victim, shattering yet another family in the wake of this tragic loss. Determined to make a difference, Aggie dedicated herself to protecting potential stalking victims. She became a vocal critic of the justice system, believing it had neglected to safeguard her daughter despite the glaring warning signs. Aggie's advocacy called for the implementation of stricter measures, such as ankle bracelet monitoring for those accused or convicted of stalking, convinced that such precautions could prevent future tragedies. In her heart, she held on to the belief that had these measures been in place, Katia's life might have been saved, a haunting thought that fueled her fight for justice. The burden of loss weighed heavily on Aggie. She struggled with the reality that her daughter had been killed under her watch, a painful truth she knew would haunt her for the rest of her life.